everyone, I am Liz Holloway from Liz Holloway Design, and welcome to my video, the birthday blooms. And I will show you two types of cards with the same card, just like so. One is watercolor paper, and then the other is just regular paper, okay? And so what I like to do is using Versamark and the black embossing powder to create the outline of this set. And so what I'm doing now is I'm going to take my, let's just use the regular color paper, and taking my embossing buddy and just swiping the cardstock. Then I'm going to ink it up with my Versamark. Stamp this in Versamark. Then taking my black embossing powder, and you can see that I took my coffee filter to capture all the particles, and I'll show you in a minute why. When I'm dousing this, I wanted to remove all the excess as much as I can, and just by flicking it. Now any of the small particles that you see on the card, you want to dust that away. Okay, so I'm dusting that away, and you can see that there are no particles left. And then at the same time, you see how clean the embossing powder is. And then as you can see from the coffee filter, there are no powders left, and it all goes back into the canisters. Okay, so then what I'm gonna also do is I'm gonna set the watercolor paper as well, and I will show you the difference between the two. Since I am embossing, I might as well do two cards at the same time. So here, taking my Versamark and just inking it up. And I'm adding it right there. And again, the watercolor gets the embossing powder. And I've got a little bit of powder down at the bottom, so I'm just kind of brushing it all off. And again, taking my coffee filter and putting it back into the canister. And again, you see how clean that is, and everything is back into my tub. Okay, so when you're heating it up, make sure your heat tool is hot and warm. So just let it run for a couple seconds before you apply the powder, or the heat the powder. Okay, so remember I mentioned earlier that I'm going to use two different color mediums for you to see the difference between the two. So I'm using Brusho, and this is yellow. So what I'm doing now is, when you're first getting this, you want to just make a small prick at the top, and just using a push pin to seal it back up when you're done. Okay, so what I'm doing now is, this is called direct to paper, and all I'm doing is just giving it a bit of a tap. And you see that there are dust particles in certain areas. And you just need a little bit of powder. Okay, so just a little bit of powder, and I'm using my aqua painter and making sure that the tip is wet still, wet before I apply. Okay, so there is a little bit of water, and so what I'm doing now is I'm taking this aqua painter and applying this onto my cardstock. Remember, this is called direct to paper. I'm taking just the crystal, and I'm just applying it right onto the paper. I'm just pulling the colors outwards because I want the darker color towards the bottom and lighter color towards the top. And then if I have too much color, pull the color right back in. And using the regular paper, it doesn't apply as smoothly as the watercolor. And then because I have extra paint or crystal on my brush, I'm just going to brush this right onto the smaller amount of flowers. Okay. And then if you need to add more powder or crystals, you can do so right now. I think that's good. I like that color. Okay, and then so there is this. This is the regular cardstock. Okay, so now I'm going to apply the same thing onto my watercolor paper. And this time, I'm going to put this onto my board and tape this down. I'm just using painter tape right now. Okay, so here is my board. And again, I am going to tap it. Okay, you see small little specks of crystals. I'm going to bring in my camera so that you can see it closer. I'll bring this up. Okay, so here is my watercolor paper. There's some crystals right in here. And so here, I'm just kind of taking my aqua painter, squeezing a little bit of water onto the barrel and making sure that the colors are, and you see how smoothly the crystal goes onto the watercolor paper. It's not as harsh lines that you get with the regular paper. I have more control with the watercolor than I do with the regular paper. If I want more, I recommend sharing this Brusho powder with a friend because a little bit goes a long way. And then I'm going back and adding more darker color. Towards the bottom. And then if I don't want the top of the flower too dark, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this down in a way so that it gives me more lighter color. I'm taking my baby wipes, wiping it all off, and then pulling this towards the center. I want the shading to be on the light side. And then if I want more powder here at the bottom, I'm going to add more color here. I like adding embossing powder outline because embossing powder outline is because when I am doing this, it stops it from bleeding out. And I add more water here and add more powder. I'm tapping my Brusho kit thing, the canister, is because it's such a small hole that sometimes it takes that bit of, you need to tap it. And so here I'm going to bring in my colors, and here I can just soften up. I'm not going to worry about the colors in the center, because once my watercolor paper dries up, I will shake that off and then you won't see it. And just lightly coloring all the little flowers. And you see the difference of the two, right? So here the water has already evaporated, and so I'm going to just shake off the excess. There's that. Okay. And then with this particular one, I'm going to heat set it. Okay, so here's the difference. It's not completely dry yet. See the difference? The watercolor seems more intense than the actual paper, the actual paper. Okay, so what I'm doing is now I am going to speed up the video here so you don't have to sit and watch me color and paint, and I'll be back shortly to show you the two. So once that's dry, I'm going to re-stamp my happiest of birthday to you, or even like the for you. I will do that actually. I'm taking my grid line acrylic and then just lining it up straight right to the line, so then I know it's straight. And then taking my reversal mark, okay, and then I know that's straight. So I'm going to take this and then stamp it right in the corner. And take this again and stamp for you right back in the corner again. And this is the watercolor paper, lining up my grid to the lines, to this grid lines. Okay, so there's the two, and so now I'm going to add, step it up a little bit, and I will use the little dots on the birthday blossom. Like that, and I am going to go with the Daffodil Delight. Oh, Crush Curd, because that's my cardstock color. Okay, just randomly add these little dots onto the cardstock. Same thing with this one. I'm gonna do the same. And then here, I'm going to just add some dots right into the flower part, so it looks like it's going right through. You can't really see it, it's very faint. And then maybe one through the wordings, okay? So there's that. Okay, and then I'm going to just add this onto my panels. And I like using glue just because it gives you that movement, so that when you're putting it on a tape, you can still be able to move it. This is the glue, the multi-purpose glue. Okay, taking my cardstock, and then again adding glue to the back. Okay, and then here I'm moving this over to the right side so that I've got equal spacing on the top and the sides. There's this card. Okay, and then I had a little bit of crystal here that I forgot to remove, but that is okay. I'm going to take my crushed curry, laying this one down. This is the watercolor paper, and you see how it buckles up, but then when you're actually gluing it down, you just hold it for a couple seconds until your glue sets and dries before moving on. And here is my cardstock, and I'm cleaning up my work surface so that any of the crystal doesn't get on. And you should always protect your surface because you don't want to get it all over your cards. Here, take this. Move it up a little bit. There you go. Okay, I will let you decide which one you like. This is the regular color paper. This is the watercolor, and I can see that the watercolor is more intense than the actual color paper. And if you are looking for measurements, my measurements can be found on my blog, lizhollowaydesign.ca, and I will link it to the bottom of the video. It's lizhollowaydesign.ca. So here you go. There are two different types of card using the Brusho, and this is called the direct to paper, where you're applying colors right onto the paper. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I shall see you soon. Bye.